Hi, this is Emily again. We're going to do a handicapping video this week. Oaklawn Park opens tomorrow, Friday the 13th, and Oaklawn Park is a track I like. In a tournament standpoint, I've had a lot of success there. It's a good track to find a long shot and just a fun track overall. I'm excited about the things they're doing on their wagering this year and like to see a track experimenting. So we'll kind of get into this race. The feature race on Friday, the 5th season, goes off as the 8th race. And like any race I'm handicapping, we'll start at the favorite. And I believe this race is going to have some value to it if you can beat this horse, which is possible. I don't think that the number 6 horse Smack is I'm going to highlight it here just so we can see it down in quadrant 1. That green dot there is a vulnerable favorite, but I'm going to label it as a soft favorite. And just kind of already going through the field, I did handicap this a little bit before hitting the record button. It's a horse that looks like is going to get extremely bet and used. So there's value in vertical, horizontal wagers, especially those multi-race sequences, because this horse is probably going to be on every single ticket and just not offer any value. And if you can beat it, you're going to get overlays on some other horses. So, create some opportunities, which really is the name of the game. And why I like doing these videos is a little bit more informational on how I go through my handicapping process, more than just sort of a tout video and this is who I like and pat me on the back type of thing. So we'll get into the race, starting at the plot. Again, my handicapping process is sort of where I begin. And a green plot, so, nothing real chaotic. You don't have horses kind of scattered all over the place. But one thing I do note, and you can see it up in the top box, that contention, it has a fire symbol. And what that means is we have 5 horses of this 10-horse field that are positioned in quadrant 1. The horses that have a similar running style, an E and EP type. So you have, potentially, like John highlighted yesterday in the Gulfstream Park Race of the Day video, you could have a best of the speed scenario. And not likely all those horses are going to hang on at the end. So a couple of them are going to fall out and, again, create some value if those horses tend to be ones that are taking a little bit more money. So we have that contention, but a lower speed rate. So that does tell me that there's a potential for a best of the speed because they're not necessarily going to go super fast. They're not going to kill each other up on the front end, but it should be stressful enough to where, we'll have not everybody hanging on late. The video that I did earlier in the week, just sort of looking back at some plots from Oaklawn Park, lend to more of a presser type, mid-pack pressing type horse. So, some of those horses, the way that this is kind of looking, the 9 and the 7, even though they are a little bit further down than would be ideal, potentially are horses we'd want to look at just from a running style standpoint. And of course, see the 5 is highlighted there. A horse like that to come pick up the pieces and get underneath. So one of the other things to think about in a race like this, because it's the beginning of the year and the condition is for 4-year-olds and upward. So we have the ages of these horses, and I'll sort it just so it's kind of easier to see. But 4 of the 10 horses in this field are 4-year-olds. They're all coming off somewhat of a layoff, 51-day to 78-day layoff. So these are horses that are making their first start as a 4-year-old. And then as we get down in a 3, 5, 9, you have some horses, that are getting up there, 7, 9-year-olds, even the 5 and 6 are worth kind of digging in a little bit deeper and evaluating their form and just kind of seeing, where they are as racehorses, if they are still at the top of their career or starting to tail off, maybe losing some gait speed, maybe changing running style. These are things to look at as these horses are getting older, which ones have upside and which ones are kind of tailing off. So we'll consider that as we get into the grid. I just wanted, before I click over into the grid, let's look at surface distance. Just to make sure nothing changes too dramatically. Everything's still kind of on the diagonal, a couple horses shifting around a little bit, but for the most part, nothing's changing too much. Alright, so let's dig in. Let's start sort of where I'll always start with my handicapping. We'll start with the favorite. Let me highlight in the grid just so we can cut this down a little bit. The number 6 horse, Smack Smack, is your 3-to-1 morning line favorite. As I alluded to earlier, I expect this horse to be shorter. You know, he's in good form. He has good speed figures. He's got some class to him. You can see he's got a B- and a grade 3 on this track. He's run well here. You know, super consistent, recent wins. Coming off a second place finish out of a common race, the number 3 who won the race that day. So there's things to like about this horse, which makes me say, you know, he's not a vulnerable favorite, but I think he's soft. And really, you know, the plot kind of is telling me that. He's down, even now I have it on surface distance, but down in quadrant 3, but he's got a running style similar to others, and potentially just doesn't get the right trip. Maybe he runs, you know, a good second or a third, and in those multi-race races, we find value because this horse is just used so heavily. So in that last race, we'll just kind of talk about the trip a little bit. Ran a good race, bit of a passive ride, if anything, if I'm being, you know, real critical. Kind of waited a little bit too long, thought the horse would come back to him. Distance-wise, I think the 8.5 makes more sense for this horse. I think 9 is a stretch, even though he's won at 9, probably better at 8.5. Again, there's another positive. So really, the strategy with a horse like this is, you know, not necessarily playing him that he's going to run out of the money, but let's try to find another horse to key off of, and if we can beat this horse, we'll just have some great prices. So start back up at the, we'll go back through the field just kind of horse by horse. So the number 1 horse is one of our newly turned 4-year-olds, so we're looking for horses that have upside. So looking back at those last 2 races, starting back off the layoff at Keeneland and Allowance versus Older, was a little worn that day and noted as a prep race. So came back at Churchill less than a month later, B- grade, and was against the flow. So you can see on the finishing position, he's 9th, beaten 4.5, which is not on paper very exciting. But the B- in a graded stake race lets you know that effort's you know, possibly a little bit better than looked, and there is some more upside there. He's got good races over the track, a B- grade in both those 3-year-old graded stake races, including a win over the track in the Smarty Jones, showing some grit. It's worth noting with this horse because he does draw the rail and lacking early speed, and even if I kind of scroll over this note here, that he ducked in at the start, fell far back, so steady late progress on the rail. It's something to consider, you know. Maybe it works to his advantage because, you know, he is on the rail and we'll be able to save ground in a race that if there are some horses that are kind of vying for the lead, this horse can get a suck-up trip. So I think there's a little bit more to this horse than just kind of his recent efforts. Not, you know, we haven't kind of gotten into the field, but not overly exciting as a horse that I'm going to put on top. But, you know, maybe we'll come back to that horse. The number 2 horse, Cut a Corner, another horse that is a 4-year-old, making his 4-year-old debut. First thing that kind of like slaps me in the face, and this is a John Doyle angle. When we first started handicapping, he pointed this out to me, and it's something I use in my handicapping, are these repetitive, kind of circling it right now, layoff lines. So this horse came back at Kentucky Downs off a 77-day layoff, then another 54-day layoff, not terrible, but, you know, it exists, and then another 78-day layoff. So something's going on there, whether it's physical or they just, you know, are having a hard time getting this horse, you know, back mentally. Something's going on to why this horse hasn't made the start. So it makes me think that as you look at this horse ever since he broke his maiden, or ran on debut, we'll even start there, super consistent. He's running almost every single month. Working his way up, running in stake races, and so it's a horse that he's shown that he can put races back and back together. You know, it's not a horse that needs a lot of time between starts necessarily. So that to me is it's just a bit of a negative. You know, I don't know if they have him right. Maybe he gets back to his better races. Still, it doesn't seem good enough. But that's just one of those things that it just kind of bothers me as a handicapper. And we'll even scroll over this American Turf, the grade 2 note. We even noted back then, this is back in May, that this is a horse that looked like he needed some time off. So he probably got a little sour, and you know, he ran some good races, and I hope they have him right. Just a horse that I'm assuming he's a big long shot, 30-1 there. So deservedly so. Hard for me to endorse putting this horse on top, just kind of based on those factors being a little bit below, plot being just average. So kind of move on from that one. We'll go to Code West. This is a 7-year-old. Talked about him a little bit because he comes out of that same race as the favorite Smack Smack. Won the race that day. Got a good ride. He was on the lead. He took some early pressure and then held off Smack Smack from off the pace late. So good effort there. One thing I want to know, just from a pace perspective, we have him, you know, we being optics plot, have him in quadrant 1. He's high up on the par line. So expect this horse to be on the lead, which makes sense because you have the 1 and the 2 that really don't show much gate speed. So this horse is going to be forwardly placed, which I think is a great run style for this horse. However, in this race, that might not work out to his favor. You know, he's going to be on the rail. They use this horse early, potential for a duel with what, you know, looks like the 10, you know, pressures from some other horses on the outside. So from a trip perspective, not a horse that I'm really excited about. Definitely not a horse I'm gonna push as a win contender. And also, you know, he's 5-1 on the morning line. You know, potentially it's a horse you just want to play that he runs out. He will get used a lot based on that. And there's a scenario where he does run out, just kind of based on pace. You know, solid horse. Not the most sound. You know, I see a lot of flags on layoffs. Looks like he's got, you know, 11, 12 starts in the last 2 years for an older horse. Not overly exciting to me. I'm gonna kind of move on field. We'll move on to the number 4. This horse 6-1 on the morning line. Another horse it's a 4-year-old, so we're looking for a horse with upside. He's got some good races. He's got a B, a grit. That was at 2 turns at Churchill. I know he ran with the track a little bit in those fairground races to break his maiden. He's a horse that likes to be forwardly placed. The Delta Mile. I went back and watched that again today. He's outside of horses. This is a horse that looks like he doesn't really take kickback well. He doesn't like sitting behind horses. And just kind of thinking from the race shape, you know, he breaks sharp. He's got Code West on the inside, so he should be forwardly placed. Maybe he gets that kind of traffic trip if horses from the outside, like the 10, if the 10 doesn't clear. I mean, there's some other horses that want to be close. So, you know, an outside stalking trip is his ideal. This finish here, where he's 3rd ahead, there's 4 horses on the wire. Seemed a little bit plotty late. You know, kind of had every chance in the middle of the stretch and was just sort of grinding along. You know, a horse to me that from a trip, he's pretty similar to the 3, if not, you know, a little bit worse. If anything, you know, we can say there's some upside there. I don't love him from a trip perspective, and just kind of some of those things as far as his run style that hard for me to make this horse a win contender, just kind of no values, you know, 6-1 type. The number 5, this horse is solid. He always shows up at Oaklawn, making his 11th start here. Solid horse, you know his run style. He's a huge square in quadrant 4. Gonna be running on late. Probably more a horse that's gonna run underneath. One thing I did note about this horse that I just kind of saw and talked about earlier, that if the track does come up sloppy, kind of change this condition here, that, well, we can look at everybody, so we have him here. He's 2 for 2 on a sloppy track. So if this track does kind of get some moisture to it, you know, it's a horse we can upgrade some. Again, his trip is, it's a deep closer. He's a good price, 20-1 on the morning line, so a good horse to use, you know, to use underneath. and hard for me to just kind of move him up unless I really see the track kind of favoring that way. Horses running from off the pace are winning, but solid horse, he'll show up with a good effort every time. That kind of moves us into the number 7. We discussed the 6 earlier, so this is another horse that does well on an off track. It looks like he's got 3 starts on an off track. None of them are really bad. Kind of improving type figures on that off track. 2 wins, and even that 4th place finish. Where he rushed into a pace. Rushed into that pace and still finished a 4th, and that was making his debut at 5.5. So let's look at this horse a little bit deeper, because I find this horse pretty interesting. Scroll all the way down, get to that number 7. Again, another 4-year-old horse with some upside. This horse has a couple EX races. I remember from New York when we caught him at a decent price, slop, no less, at Aqueduct on January 10th. Good ride, and actually he won the race riderless here, and that kind of helped us push this horse. Has made a barn change since to the Robertino Diodoro barn. Does good work. He does good stuff with these type of horses, and this horse has been in good form since changing barns. Speed figures kind of moving in the right direction, moving forward. I went back and I watched this race at November 23rd at Zia. I thought this was a better than looked effort. I know the short comment says closing needing more. Well, go back and watch this race, because this horse was shuffled back early, had tons of run on the far turn, was buried in traffic, just kind of waiting for room, kind of going, jock trying to decide in or out in the stretch, just, had run, just looking for room. Finally ducked inside. The 2 horses, 1st and 2nd place finishers, came from the outside and were clear, and this horse continued out past them. So that race, to me, it's worth watching. It's better than looked effort. I like that race quite a bit. So some things to like about this horse. He has some quality to him. He's got some good races. He's got upside. He's got these mid-90 races, which so far seems like they're on par for this field. And this last figure at Zia, I feel that this is a good solid number. I pulled up the grid for the 4th place finisher, who's a horse named Dalmore, who ran in the San Pasquale race and finished 4th, and you can see Dalmore at that Zia race, a 93, and he backed it up with a 96. So I feel like that's a pretty strong honest figure for this horse. He's had a little bit of time. I think this horse does well with some time between races. He can fire fresh, and has a good running style. He's got that presser style. He can finish. The plot on this horse. We'll start this at, I'm going to look at it from standard, just kind of get out his current form. And a lot of times I've noticed, and why it's important to use our critical thinking and look at the plot and look at the grid and just kind of match up. So we have a horse that has upside, and we have a couple races of this horse that, he had trouble at the start. So he's, down here. But I think this horse can kind of be more in a quadrant 2 position. I think he's capable of that. Those races, that last race, he was capable of it. He was actually closer early on and then got shuffled back. So just watching this horse from a dual standpoint, I think he's got a more pressing style than a closer, than a quadrant 4. Actually, when I scroll over, you can see he's a presser, kind of 4.5 lengths back, and that's the type of trip I'm looking for. I think that's going to be the winning trip in this race. An interesting horse. He's 92 on the morning line, and I think this horse is going to could possibly be overlooked. Especially if a few of these other horses, the 3, the 4, take some money, and of course they bet down the 6. I think the 7 might be able to sneak by. Otherwise, 9-2 is very playable, and of course he'll probably even much more than that in those multi-race sequences. So let's move on to number 8. This is another horse. He's in quadrant 1, and another horse that could take some action. So this horse to me is very, very, very common. He seems to run the same race every time. His best race is, if anything, in this 40 N1X. He's been over at Santa Anita since they moved him up to the 62. Just hasn't been competitive. You can see he's a C plus. The B minus was at Los Al. So at Santa Anita, which is probably more honest gauge for that level, he's a C plus. So you have a horse that's moving up in class. The 2 other times he was in restricted stakes as younger, the Echo Eddie and the Snow Chief, a C and a C plus. So this horse just looks below to me. I know he's getting a barn change, but he's been working at Santa Anita, so there's working at Santa Anita up until the end of December. So this horse is not like he's been at Oaklawn for the last 2 months, and training there. He's shipped in, and I just don't see a lot of upside on this horse. I don't see the class on this horse. That he's going in the right direction, even earning, I'd like to see some type of B plus there to know he's gonna move forward. Another horse from a pace perspective that seems to get, lack of a better word, caught in the mosh in this quadrant 1 with some of these other horses. So to me, this horse is no use for this horse using on any type of multi-race wagers whatsoever. Can he kind of plod along and run 3rd or 4th? Yeah, why not? But unexciting. Number 9 had a good-looking plot, and it's important. We'll kind of go through the running lines. He's in the middle, and I think even on surface distance, kind of moved up a bit more favorable. This is the horse that had a good season at Oaklawn Park last year. Kind of rattled off some wins, got really good for the trainer. Surface distance, he's in a great spot. So want to kind of dig into it a little bit more. We had a barn change back at Remington Park. Franco took over this horse, ran in a starter allowance, just crushed, perfect, got a B plus. B plus suggesting he could move forward, which he did. Won a 50,000 claimer, B plus, saved pocket room. Ran good in an optional allowance, optional claiming race, another B grade, and then ran a B in a grade 3. And then just kind of seemed to well, actually he ran some good races. Let's give credit where credit's due. Ran some good races after that. So, he likes Oaklawn Park. Well, again, I kind of see this horse. He's got that double layoff line, right? There's 2 scratches. Typically, we have those reasons in, but I think we don't cover Remington Park, so why we don't know if those are vet scratches or trainer scratches or even what that level is. We'll look for that soon. That's definitely something we have in development. We have a new grid coming out. Kind of a teaser on that. I'm probably not supposed to say something, but anyways, we will have all that information soon. So we have a double layoff line with this horse, and just kind of looking through, it kind of seems maybe he's better at this mile. He got good. He's got a good plot. This is the horse that was the 9-year-old too. So where he is in his form cycle is questionable, but honestly, on his best day, he figures in here. So if you are kind of spreading against the favorite, I could see using this horse. He's not super exciting at 6-1, but again, those multi-race, there'll be some more value there. Probably not a win play for me at 6-1, but I could make a case for this horse. Positive plot, speed figures, and when in form, he's right. So we'll get down to the number 10. The number 10, Mr. Z. Now, Mr. Z is taking a class drop. He's been running exclusively in graded stake races. So last time he did that was in the Smarty Jones. So it's been a while. Taking that class drop, I think, will help him out. We look up at the plot. We'll go back to the plot, and he's high up on he's in the quadrant 1 and above the par line, and has a big circle. And so, again, kind of where we have to use, critical thinking and things like that is if he's facing better horses, classier horses, he's going to fade. And a lot of times we know with horses that, they're speed horses and they quit hard. And there's no finish, often there's a no push. So, it's possible in here, especially since he's high up. He's going to be one of the faster horses. There's a case to be made that he is a best of the speed type. I could see that on this horse. What concerns you is the big circle, is that there is a no finish. So that would be the one knock. But if I am kind of looking for a horse that's gonna hang around and be the best of the speed type, I might mess around with this horse a little bit. Again, you can't really have a whole lot of confidence, and at 6-1 is unexciting, but maybe another horse that sneaks away. Just looking at his odds in previous starts, well over double digits for sure. All right, so kind of previewing those horses, going back through the plot, if there's anything I missed, anybody I want to look at again. I think there's some value. Try to key around the 7. I think we'll get a good price on that horse. I think that horse has a lot of upside. And that'll kind of be my key horse, and then using some others and less on some other horses. This feature here, we have a lot of things we can look for as far as, we have it sorted on speed figures, but trainer jockey, just want to see if anything pops out, positive on the 7, which is great for a horse I want to key. 4, 8, some 9, things like that. See if anybody just kind of jumps around, just fun to play with. If 10 gets a little bit of action on earnings, which makes sense coming out of those graded stake races. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll probably do this video for Talking Trips next week. So good